Shalom, back again with another lesson. Before I begin this lesson, I'd like to begin by giving all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rachach Quadash. I give double honors to my elders and apostles of great millstone who rule well, where I've learned this truth from. I want to say peace and salutations to Akim, you brothers out there laboring, pushing this word out in all truth and in sincerity, presenting your bodies as a living sacrifice. I want to say shalom to you Aqua, for you sisters out there that may be listening. I also want to say shalom to you Israelites that are scattered across the four corners of the earth. You may look like these other nations, but your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shalom. So I've been looking on social media, and yet again, here comes yet another government shutdown. I believe this is set to take place on either the 31st of January or the 1st of February. I think it's the 1st of February, because that would make more sense. Monday morning, the government is shut down from the 1st of the month. But I believe it's either the 31st or the 1st, right? But I believe that this government shutdown is in regards to all the ICE raids and illegal detentions that they've been doing in regards to the migration crisis. However, you've had two unalivings, should I say, by ICE instead of illegal immigrants, but of U.S. citizens, right? And the worst case about it is they are so-called white U.S. citizens, right? So you had a white, so-called white lady that got shot in the head, right? And then you have the other man that was gunned face down, after trying to help a protester, to get away from ICE's aggressive behavior. You've seen a bunch of other U.S. citizens being arrested for protesting. So either way, Jacob's trouble is getting more and more serious, more heated, So as we always do when we start these lessons, referring to Jacob's trouble, we always start in the book of Jeremiah, because obviously that touches on Jacob's trouble. So we're going to start in the book of Jeremiah chapter 30, and I'm going to read verse 4, right? And it says, "And these are the words that the Lord Yahweh spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah." Now you're probably wondering why it says Israel and Judah, right? So Israel represents the northern kingdom. That would be your Latinos, your so-called Hispanics, and your Native American indigenous, your Gadites, right? So that's describing the northern kingdom, the northern tribes, right? Judah would be concerning the southern tribes, and that would be your so-called African American, your so-called Jamaican, West Indians, and your so-called Haitians, right? So they make up the southern kingdom, which would be, the tribe of Judah, I guess, is how they would refer to it, right? So you have, I'll read it again. So this is Jeremiah 30:4. It says, "And these are the words that the Lord Yahweh spake concerning Israel, the northern kingdom, and concerning Judah, the southern kingdom," right? So the Israelites. Verse 5, it says, "For thus saith the Lord Yahweh, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace," right? Because when you look out on these streets, you're definitely seeing a lot of fear, a lot of trembling, and no peace, right? No justice, no peace, right? But you're seeing a lot of these protests, and you're seeing a lot of fear. There was a woman who was crying her eyes out because her husband got taken away from her. That was her provider, right? He was taken away because of, I guess, his immigration status, right? And you've got, people that are fearful that ICE are turning up. They're running into the house, locking the door, and they're refusing to open the door because obviously if there's no warrant, they can't show a warrant. They won't go outside because why? Because they don't know whether they're going to come home. They don't know where they're going to end up. They don't know if they're going to be killed. They don't know. They're in fear of their own life.
Leave me alone!
Video obtained by CNN shows federal agents wearing ice vests chasing a woman back to her home in Maria, Louisiana, a suburb of New Orleans. Jacelyn, 22-year-old mother, says she's a U.S. citizen who was born and raised in Louisiana. She asked that her last name not be used to protect her privacy. She says she was walking home from the grocery store when the masked agents attempted to approach her a few feet from her house. Jacelyn can be heard yelling at the men as she runs towards her home.
Leave me alone!
Moments later, a man identified as Jacelyn's stepfather is heard yelling at the agents before they are seen heading back to a vehicle.
Told you to get me? No, you're the one making the statue.
We weren't even looking for you.
So get over here.
Right.
So who are you looking for?
This is a public area.
Okay, what's your you want? I don't want to speak to you.
Well, I don't want to talk to you either. You're the one talking to me.
Hispanic people against Hispanic, bro.
CNN is
and they have a warrant, then
They don't have a warrant.
They said they'll get one.
They said they'll get one.
okay, if they get one, then they're gonna break the door down.
That's fine, but I don't want to open the door if they don't have a warrant. Because this was my DoorDash lady. I don't even know the lady. She just ran to my house.
All right.
I have a baby here. Like, I really don't know what to do.
Even on
I'll
the
open the door if the police, say that I have to open the door, but like, I don't know what to do. This lady just was shot yesterday. Now, I ordered fucking food and there's people outside my fucking house.
Cheyenne, I'm on my way, okay? All
What
right.
do we do? What do we do? What do we do? I'm so scared. James, come downstairs.
There's not peace. Like, you see the protests that are kicking off is because it's almost like the U.S. Constitution is being stripped. So freedom of press, like being able to film, legal assembly, I believe, and then freedom of speech. All this is being attacked, right? So there's not peace. There's no peace in the streets because everybody's starting, to fight back or stand up. You know what I mean? So as I mentioned, we're getting, that time of Jacob's trouble is starting to get a little bit more heated. So at the moment, I'd say it's almost like the boiling toad effect. If you throw a toad in boiling water, the first thing it's going to do is jump out because it's too hot, so it jumps out. If you put a toad in cold water and then gradually turn the heat up, yeah, you boil a toad that way because it'll get acclimatized to the temperature rise, and it'll just stay in there. So at the moment, that temperature's rising. So the people of the toad and ice and Trump's regime is the cooker. It's cooking, turning that heat up, right? So verse 6, it says, "Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness," right? Because that's that fear, right? That fear is striking a lot of people. People are scared to go outside now. People are scared to go to work. People are, and it's affecting a lot of things. I recently see a social media video of a farmer said that basically he had to do all his workers, all his employees, normally at that time of year would be out plucking the fields, right? But this time of year, because of ice, they've all fled. So now he was the only one left to plow the fields, and he looked like he's finished. His whole farming industry or his farm was in trouble of going bankrupt, losing everything, which then also leads into the famines.
Well, all of us farmers have officially fucked around and we have officially found the fuck out now, guys. I am on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm on the verge of fucking tears. Overnight, all of my fucking help fled. My help, out of fear for their safety, their lives, they fucking fled. And now I am left out here standing in my unharvested carrot field. It is January and I'm in Kansas, and this is when carrot harvest goes in fucking Kansas. This field should be full of workers, but all my fucking workers left. And who the fuck do you think is to blame for that? Every single one of them left. Now I have to by myself try to fill that truck with a load of fucking carrots in one day, and I can't do that, guys. I have to get these fucking carrots to market by next week or my contract is fucking terminated. This is $936,000 worth of carrots right here, and I can't fucking pick them by myself. If they're unharvested, I will get kicked out of that contract and I will get sued by the fucking Planters Loves Carrots company for that fucking money. But I have nobody that'll come fucking pick my carrots. Fuck, we are so fucking cooked.
Food shortages, prices going up, all these things have an effect, right? It's almost like the Trump regime. They don't care. They're like, get the immigrants out is what the presupposition is what they're pushing. However, what it is more likely is, no, we want to make this country a so-called white country again. Get everybody out. If they ain't falling in line, get them out. We want to make America great, and we're going to do that, right? So you have two sides of the coin. So you have the people that are protesting, and then you got the Trump supporters that are with it, that are joining ICE, basically, right? So as I read on, verse 7, it says, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it," right? So who's the he that it's referring to? Is referring to the elect of Israel, right? The elect of Israel. It's not to say that they ain't going to go through any tribulations, trials and tribulations, because they will. They'll go through it, but ultimately they're going to be delivered out of that trouble, that time of trouble, right? So, you know, the more that I've seen on social media, I'm starting to see that a lot of people are being locked up in these detention centers. They're creating, if I'm not mistaken, they are building or looking at building new detention centers, right? Because obviously they're ready, which ultimately I believe will be turned into these FEMA detention centers. You know what I mean? Where they lock anybody that's not with the program.
A leaked video coming from an ICE detention facility shows dozens of people packed into a single holding cell, sleeping on the floor with no beds or bathrooms, and they're also being deprived of food. Take a look.
Miren cómo nos tienen aquí. Miren qué migración que nos tienen. Y gente que estamos legales, gente que no estamos legales, gente que está perdiendo su familia, nos están secuestrando, nos tienen en un depósito aquí en Baltimore, nos tienen en la 31 Huskin.
The person in the video who is speaking Spanish said this: "Look at how they have us here. Look at how immigration is treating us. There are people here who are legal. There are people here who are not legal. There are people who are losing their families. They are kidnapping us. They have us in a warehouse in Baltimore. They beat us. They beat an older man. We can't take it anymore. They have kept us here for more than 10 days without bathing and enduring hunger." Short-term holding spaces are being used as long-term confinement areas. These facilities are meant for processing only, not extended detention. But what stood out the most to me was when that guy said there's both legal and illegal immigrants in there. That raises serious legal and constitutional concerns that should worry everybody, regardless of where you stand politically. We know there have been thousands of documented cases where federal judges have ruled that people are being detained without due process, and they're holding them in these places.
Breaking news. Women in ICE custody said they were treated worse than animals.
With like a chains on us, hands to weight, legs connected. It was very scary because they chained my chest super tight and I couldn't breathe properly. I was really scared because I thought I'm not going to be able to breathe.
They were chained, denied food and water, and told to urinate on themselves, and packed into cages like animals. This is not fiction. This is ICE.
I'm outside. I'm outside. It doesn't say out here. And I've just been ordered to leave the premises. And she's yelling at me right now.
Also leads me to believe that MOTB system, something big is getting ready to happen. You know, especially with this government shutdown. You know, the dollar is falling, gold prices have skyrocketed, and you know all these rare earth minerals are sort of increasing. You know, you got all these wars, rumors of wars, everything that's getting ready to happen. Like something big is getting ready to pop off. That's why I say, although Jacob's trouble has started, it hasn't exploded yet, right? So we're still in the beginning stages. So that heat is getting ready to be turned up a couple of notches, right? Real soon. And the beginning of February, or when the government shutdown happens, could be it. You remember what happened the last time we had a government shutdown, right? So what happened? A lot of people lost their jobs. You know, people, even the military weren't being paid, right? And they had to all line up at the food banks, right? Now you've got farms that are not producing crops because ICE is scared off all the employees, right? And then you got the government shutdown, nobody's getting paid, right? The famine. What do you think that's going to do? People protesting ICE and all the fuckery, excuse my language, that ICE is doing, right? That's going to culminate into a whole big heap of mess, right? A big heap of mess, right? Which, again, is another example of prophecy being fulfilled. And as I mentioned, it hasn't gone nuclear yet, right? Nuclear in the sense of like, you know, Jacob's trouble fully, you know, a civil war in the streets. You know, you got the Democrat protesters firing on ICE, ICE firing on, you know, the Democrats and you know, the liberals or whatever they want to call them. And then you got the Trump supporters joining with ICE, and, you know, you got the Trump supporters that are, you know, against ICE. And, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. It's like chaos in the streets. These are, beginning signs of potentially how this whole thing could collapse, right? And as I mentioned, the dollar's already on the decline at the moment. The dollar is shrinking in value. When your dollar becomes less than nothing and it costs more dollars to buy the normal daily things that you'd buy, I mean, it's going to cause a lot of anger, And there's a few scriptures in Ezra's that, I want to pull out, and Lord willing, maybe I can in this lesson. It's like, but as we can see, like there's so many people being done bad, done dirty by ICE, right? There's what's his name, Don Lemon. I believe he's like an American news reporter, a very popular news reporter. He does like the morning show, maybe. I forget which show he's on. I do see him quite often. He was just arrested recently. If you haven't seen that in the news, he was just recently arrested.
This is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere. They don't expect us to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual.
So right now it's kind of mayhem. We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them.
Did they explain to you why they're here?
They did not.
They said that there is someone here in Easterwood, someone who is a member of ICE, and he's a pastor of the church.
Our church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left.
So this is what the First Amendment is about the freedom to protest.
There's a varying array of views in this church on politics of immigration. Recognize the complexity of the issue.
This shows you just how divided America is. When you look at the protesters here, and then you look at the people there who are praying, and you know what was the interesting thing? If these two groups could just get together, they might figure out what to do.
And former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested early Friday morning in Los Angeles. A source says that Lemon was leaving a hotel in Beverly Hills on his way to cover an event related to the Grammy Awards when he was detained. Attorney General Pam Bondi has confirmed the arrest and said it is related to Lemon appearing alongside protesters in Minnesota at a church. Now, Lemon has said he was there as a journalist.
I'm not part of the group. I'm just here photographing. I'm a journalist.
The Justice Department first attempted to get a magistrate judge to sign off on the charges. He wouldn't. Now Lemon is in custody and arrested. Lemon is expected to appear in court on Friday. His lawyer, Abby Lowell, says that they will fight these charges vigorously.
Why? Because he attended a protest that was at a church. So there was I believe it's the pastor was either an ICE agent or he was an ICE supporter. So the people came to the church, found out who he was, and during his sermon or his service, they came and they protested. They disrupted the service. There was another video of a woman that was seeing that basically she said ICE turned up at her house. They had a warrant that was escalated to the grand jury or a federal jury, something like that. And now, you got people that went to that protest that were just filming the whole event and now being arrested. Right, so they're going after everybody, and these are all U.S. citizens that are protesting, right? So we understand that, again, Jacob's trouble is about to start getting bad. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read in the book of Daniel because it sort of explains how bad it will get, right? So this is the book of Daniel, chapter 12. I'm going to start at verse 1. Why is it? You see, Esau loves to try and mess with me, right? So, Salakia, 1 second. Salakia about that. I just had to restart the app because, again, I've gone to Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, and as you saw, it wasn't displaying the scriptures correctly, right? That's Esau and his trickery, right? So this is, as we continue, this is the book of Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And it says, "And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people." And who are the children of thy people? The Israelites, the elect of the Israelites, right? It says, "And there shall be a time of trouble." It's that time that we're talking about, Jacob's trouble. "And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. It says, and at that time shall thy people, hold on, Salakia, let me read that again. Right, it says, this is Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. It says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So thy people is talking about the Israelites, the elect of Israel, right? The ones that are written off to be delivered in those times. And as I mentioned, it doesn't mean that they're not going to go through their trials and tribulations and hard times. They're going to be tried, because in the scriptures it says, for gold is tried in the fire, an acceptable man in the furnace of adversity. You're going to go through it, right? But it says, and at that time, thy people shall be delivered, everyone that should be found written in the book. That's the elect, right? So we understand, like Christians, they like to say, and this isn't to talk about them, because obviously they're irrelevant, but they like to always say, I'm already saved, but nobody's saved until the end, right? And I'll bring out that point in the book of Matthew, right? So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, right? Because we always stick to the scriptures. Whenever we say something, we bring it out in the scriptures, right? There's always a scripture with an answer that we can give. So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24. I'm going to start at verse 12, right? And it says, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold, right? You're starting to see the love of many waxing cold because of these rays, there's a lot of things that's going to cause this to happen, right? Jacob's trouble, tribulation in the earth, pains, wars, rumors of wars, pestilences, famines, all this is going to take place. And you could read that a little further up, you see? Right, verse 6 all the way down, right? So I'm just focusing on verse 12. It says, and iniquity shall abound, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. It says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So when you're going through these trials and tribulations, it could be a case where you turn around and say, look, I didn't sign up for this. This is too much for me. I'm not following this way, because I'm getting more slack following these scriptures. So if you don't follow the ways, you ain't going to be delivered. You ain't going to be saved, right? It says, but he that shall endure unto the end is obviously when you make it, right? The same shall be saved, right? So you're going to be delivered if you're part of the elect and you go through the trials and tribulations that are getting ready to take place in the earth, right? Verse 14, it says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Now that all nations, if you remember me saying at the start of this lesson, shalom to all the Israelites that are scattered across the four corners of the earth. They may look like these other nations, but the sea line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are the all nations that it's referring to. And the gospel of the kingdom, which is only for the Israelites, shall be preached in all the world to all the Israelites for a witness unto all nations, all the Israelites in these other nations, and then shall the end come. That's what that means, right? So when you say, a Christian says, well, I'm saved, blah, blah, blah. We ain't reached the end yet. So how do you know? You can't be as bold to say that you've been saved already, because we're still going through this thing right now. The time of trouble hasn't fully hit us yet. We're in the time of trouble, but it hasn't fully gone nuclear yet, right? And when I say nuclear, it'll eventually get to that during World War III, right? So what's one of the things that the scriptures tell us that we need to do specifically, right? So when we look at the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, I believe it's verse 10. Yeah, right? So this is Ephesians 6 and 10. It says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of the Most High, to these scriptures, right? And this truth, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Word devil is deceiver, the liar, right? The liars of the earth, right? The ones that are in rulership right now, these Edomites, right? Verse 12 says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places, right? And this is what we fight against, in these scriptures, right? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, roughly paraphrasing, right? So we don't take up swords, we don't pick up arms, and try and fight, the wicked that rule this earth. No, we fight them through the scriptures by teaching our people, waking them out, preaching the gospel unto all the Israelites across the world, right? That's how we fight against these things, right? Verse 13, it says, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand, right? So that's what we're doing. We're bringing out these scriptures. We're teaching our people. We're waking our people up, giving them the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, telling them to repent, come back to the Lord, trust in the Lord, pray that the Lord has mercy upon us, right? And we're praying that we've done enough that we may be considered to be part of the elect, right? So that's what we're doing. So I'm going to jump over now, and I'm going to probably make this the last scripture. I'm going to go to 2nd Ezra, chapter 9. I'm going to start from the top, verse 1, right? And I'm going to read down. I'll read down to verse 12, right? So it says, this is 2nd Ezra, chapter 9, verse 1. It says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. When thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. And this is what we're seeing. The Lord said at the end, there's going to be time of trouble, Jacob's trouble, there's going to be chaos in the streets, uproars of the people, sedition among men. All these things are getting ready to happen, right? And as we continue reading, it sort of expounds on it a little bit more, right? So verse 3 says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, which we're seeing, protests and all these issues that are happening, I'm pretty sure when the government shutdown takes place, it's going to be even worse, right? The crash of the dollar getting ready to come through, it's going to be even worse. It's going to be, it's going to be a strange summer. It's going to be I don't want to use the word exciting, because it's going to be scary, but it's going to be one of them summers like, I can't believe I just I'm witnessing what I'm seeing, right? It's going to be one of them summers, right? So again, I'll read verse 3. It says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. So as you can see, it was already predestined for this to happen. It's already prophesied for this to happen from the beginning, right? Verse 5, it says, for like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. We're starting to see the ending manifest in all these events that are taking place on social media, in the news, all across the world, right? We're starting to see these things. Verse 6, it says, even so, the times also of the highest have plain beginnings, and in wonder and powerful works, and endings in effects and signs. We're seeing all these signs. We're seeing everything come to pass, right? Verse 7 says, everyone that shall be saved shall be able to escape by his works and by his faith, whereby ye have believed, right? So this is why we're saying we're doing this work to wake our people up, so we may be considered, right? May be considered to be considered worthy to be delivered from all the stuff that's getting ready to happen, right? So verse 8 says, matter of fact, I'll read verse 7 again, right? It says, and everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith, whereby ye have believed, shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning, right? So they've been chosen from the beginning, right? So those that are doing the work, the elect, they've been sanctified from the beginning, right? So the ones that are supposed to be out here preaching this word, they're going to be in their lot. The ones that are supposed to fall out the truth, they're going to be in their lot. The ones that are supposed to scoff, they're in their lot, everybody's in their lot, right? But the elect are gonna be preaching his word out, doing exactly what the Lord has commanded, right? Verse 9, it says, then shall they be in pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torment. So the ones that have scoffed, the ones that fell out the truth, teaching a wayward doctrine, a false doctrine, saying that the salvation is for all nations. The Edomites can receive salvation. Like, people that speak crazy, this is what it's referring to. It's talking to them. And this is verse 9. I'll read it again. Then shall they be in pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torments. Verse 10, it says, for such as in their life have received benefits and have not known me, and they that have loathed my law, while they had yet liberty, and when as yet place of repentance was open to them, understood not, but despised it. So all the scoffers, the ones that don't believe, the ones that say the Hebrew Israelites are cults, the ones that, want to make jokes, mock the Israelites that are just trying to give them the warning, as we've been commanded to, as pertaining to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 3 and 17, right? It says those, but despised it. It says, verse 12, it says, the same must know it after death by pain. So it's going to be a painful time when it all kicks off for those non-believers, right? And, that's their own fault. They brought it on themselves. Ultimately, it's the Lord, because the Lord has rejected them, right? So they just, they're just going to be out there dealing with whatever the Lord has prepared for them, right? So I'm going to leave it there. There's more scriptures I can get on this. There's other scriptures I can get into. I think I was going to say something in regards to the farming and the famines. So I may jump over to the book of 2nd Ezra chapter, I believe it's, bear with me. I believe it's in the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 6. Yeah, it is. So this is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6, verse 22. It says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Meaning there ain't going to be no food on them shelves, The farmers are in trouble right now because ICE is chasing away all the workers, right? So these farmers have to figure out how they're going to get these crops, harvested and put on the shelves. Other things can take place. You got roadblocks, martial law, all these things that can happen, and turn everything from a bad situation into a worse situation, right? Verse 23 says, and the trumpet shall give a sound. And a trumpet meaning, when you're watching the news and you're seeing, ICE have lost control. There's fighting in streets in the city. It's like a trumpet, right? It's like an alarm. Breaking news. Donald Trump has fired missiles on Iran. Breaking news. ICE is now being shot in the streets. Breaking, you know what I mean? Like that will be like the trumpet. It says, and the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall suddenly be afraid. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies. You see, it's going to be crazy out here. People fighting against each other. It used to be, good neighbors. Hey, how you doing? Can I borrow a cup of sugar? Yeah, sure, man. Help yourself. It says, and at that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. It says, whosoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation and the end of your world. Right? So I'm going to leave it there. I pray that this lesson has been edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. I give Double honors to my elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, where I've learned this truth from. I want to say peace and salutations to you Archeum, you brothers out there, you sisters out there that may be watching, and you Israelites that are scattered across the four corners of the earth. And your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And again, it's on to the next one, Lord willing. Shalom.